Good morning. Appreciate everyone being here. It's a little bit different from us. So we've been speaking to an empty room for over a year and a half. So this is a little bit different. And we don't mean to gawk at you. It's just so unusual to see people here. But we do have a quorum. So clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Hornback, Senator Southworth,
Here remotely.
Senator Yates, Representative Bowling,
Here in the room.
Representative Hart,
Here in the room.
Representative Minter, Representative Cook,
Here in the room.
Chairman Meredith.
Present in the room. First item on the agenda is consideration of the minutes of the June 10th, 2021 meeting of the committee. Is there a motion that be considered as approved?
Second.
Motion by co-chair Cook, seconded by, I believe, Representative Bowling. All those in favor, clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Hornback, Senator Southworth,
Aye.
Senator Yates, Representative Bowling,
Yes.
Representative Hart,
Yes.
Representative Minter, Representative Cook,
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
Aye. Motion carries. All vendors are registered with the Secretary of State's office. Total number of items on the agenda today equal 822 in the amount of $878,783,563.51. Next order of business, consideration of the agenda, including the deferred list, personal service contract list, PSC amendment list, memorandum of agreement list, memorandum of agreement amendment list, and the corrections list, except for those items selected for further review. Do we have a motion to consider the contracts reviewed without objection?
So moved.
Motion by co-chair Cook, second again by Representative Bowling. All those in favor? Sorry, I'm in two different committee meetings here where we do things. My fault. All those in favor vote aye. All opposed vote no. So clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Hornback, Senator Southworth,
Aye.
Senator Yates, Representative Bowling, Representative Hart,
Yes.
Representative Minter, Representative Cook,
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
Aye. Motion carries. And I made reference to a deferred list. There is no deferred items this time, so we can continue with the agenda. First item on the pull list with the Department of Local Government are numbers 11 and 12 on the routine personal service contract green list. If representatives here, please identify yourself for the record.
Good morning. My name is Billy Johnson. I'm the Executive Director for the Office of Federal Grants within the Department for Local Government. And today with me is my budget manager, Laura Redmond, and Bill Polly, one of our staff attorneys.
All right. Appreciate you joining us. Sorry you can't be here in person, but I requested these two contracts be pulled, and I don't think it's a big deal. Just want some clarification. I always have a sensitivity to women being paid the same as men are for comparable work. And from the contract descriptions that we have for these two contracts, the responsibilities are identical. I'm just curious as why the one for number 12 is $10,000 less than number 11.
Laura, I'll let you talk to that.
Thank you. We appreciate your questions. The difference was because of the request for proposals. The request for proposals came in, and the female you referred to proposed a lower amount.
Well, to that end, I didn't pull number 13, but we have three contracts for the same scope of service, and number 13 is the less of the three contracts. Was there a difference in scope on those, or did they all reply to the same RFP?
The other one that you are referring to was actually a different RFP. It's for a different program parameters. And again, the successful bidder bid a lower amount per hour.
Okay, going back to 11 and 12 again, you say it's the same request for proposal. They're doing the same work.
They are doing the same work. One staff member is focusing more on environmental reviews. And I don't want to say staff member, one contract worker focuses a little bit more on on environmental reviews. Another, it's their different levels of expertise, but even though the RFP was the same RFP, they do have separate responsibilities, just because of their different levels of expertise. But again, it goes back to what they proposed in their responses to the bid.
I appreciate that, but that's a very subjective it's like explanation of this. If again the same RFP and one is $10,000 less than the other, why couldn't we go back to Mr. Hanna and say you're $10,000 too high?
I don't know that I have an answer for that.
Well, again, it bothers me that we have an RFP that sets a standard for everyone, but we're awarding one contract for the same responsibilities, $10,000 less than the other contract. And unfortunately, or maybe ironically, the lower the contract is a female. And we know in this state that women are getting about 73 cents on the dollar for comparable work and pay from men. So other than subjectively saying they have maybe some different skills, that's not really reflected or supported by the RFP. In short, I don't mean to be crass about it, but just want to make sure that one person's not being discriminated against. And the fact that she had the lower bid, I think, would set the standard for all contracts.
Sir, I would like to say that both of their bids were on the low end for what they're doing. I think more appropriately, the female should be paid more rather than paying the male less.
I would agree, but that's the question we have here is that there's a disparity here, and it's an obvious disparity and supported by a historical fact that women in Kentucky make only 73% of what men make. So how do we rectify this? How to resolve this? By approving these two contracts, we're saying this is acceptable. To me, that's not acceptable. Again, I appreciate the explanation that the gentleman maybe has some skills that the other doesn't, but that's not reflected by the RFP, and I don't think can be supported by that, and it just doesn't look good.
Sir, we could reevaluate her contract with the other bidders and put her salary bid in line with those. It's my belief that it would still come out the same decision that she was the most qualified bidder, even at the higher price. Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, I'm looking for a recommendation. Obviously, what we have before us appears to be discriminatory. I haven't heard a good explanation as to why it has occurred. So you tell me, what should we do in this situation?
I would be glad to recalculate and base her contract on the same hourly wage as the other.
Well, again, but there's a secondary issue here. It does bother me that she's the lower of the two. Yeah, we could certainly raise her 10,000, but there's an opportunity here to also lower him 10,000. And we have a third contract, which say a different RFP, so I can't really argue that one, but it's the lowest of the three. Mm-hmm.
And sir, this is all off of my memory. I don't have the other bids of the other bidders. But again, these numbers are very low. This is not discriminatory in the idea that DLG decided to pay the female less. She simply asked for less.
I'm not suggesting that you have or you did, but from appearance's sake, it doesn't look good. It looks improper. And I've already quoted you the statistic that in Kentucky, women are paid 73 cents on the dollar compared to men for the same work. Now, I don't think anybody has intentionally done anything wrong, but it certainly has the appearance that this woman has been discriminated against. And I can't, in good conscience, approve these contracts when it has this appearance. So maybe the better course of action, and I'll throw this out to you, is we just defer action on these two contracts, let you go back and talk to the two parties involved, and come back next month and say, here's what we're going to do.
Second the motion for deferral.
So motion for deferral, is there a second? Second by Co-Chair Cook. All those in favor of the deferral, please vote aye. All opposed, vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Hornback, Senator Southworth,
Explain my vote, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please.
What's bothered me for quite some time is the fact we'll put out an RFP and we got 3 different people or whatever number respond. They all come in at different numbers. There's no way that every contractor is going to, coordinate with every other possible person in a pool. Then we award one contract to 3 different people at 3 different prices. And it doesn't bother me at all that they ask for 3 different numbers, and it could have been the men or the women. It's really all irrelevant to me, that part of it. But I do think perhaps maybe it's a 45A issue. Perhaps it's just not an implementation issue. I don't know. And I'd like to get that cleared up by next month when we get this one back. When a low bid comes in, the whole point of bidding is to find a low bid. So when a low bid comes in, can that not be, the marker that everybody else has to fit that benchmark, or else they don't get the job? Or whatever the lowest bid is, that is okay by 3 people. I'm just trying to, that's what I want to hear cleared up, because, this has been going on and it goes on all the time. It's not just this one time. I appreciate you bringing it up. But I would like to be clear on exactly how we address this, because there's a ton of disparate pay, not just as a male-female thing, but just, 3 random contract bidders. So I vote yes to defer.
Thank you. And for one of a better term, defense of the Department for Local Government, you folks need to understand that all we get is a thumbnail description of what these contracts are. We don't have an extensive background as to what's entailed in these things. But from the 3 contracts that we have, it looks like they're all performing the same duties. Again, I don't think anybody has done anything intentionally wrong, but it does have the appearance there's some disparity here that we need to address. So that's the reason for the deferral. But Clerk, if you would, continue roll call.
Senator Yates, Representative Bowling,
I had 1 or 2 questions. Would that be appropriate to ask now?
Most certainly, please do.
Okay. My question is, are on both of these contracts on 11 and 12, are these folks, were they previously employed by the DLG?
They were.
They were. Okay. And are they performing substantially the same task with this contract, through this contract, as they had previously when they worked for the cabinet? Okay. And have we done kind of a cost analysis on, what it costs to keep them on it as employees, or have an employee of the cabinet versus having this having this subbed out, via a contract?
Yes, we have.
Okay. And where do those numbers fall?
With these contracts, if you take the highest of the 2 contracts that are before you, the cost savings to the agency is about 20 to 25%, just because of benefits and retirement benefits.
Okay, thank you. And if I may address the fact that they had the previous contract, that previous contract has now run its course. We defer this for a month. We'll have no employees in these positions until this contract is approved.
All right, thank you. Clerk, please continue.
Senator Yates, Representative Bowling,
Yes.
Representative Hart,
Yes.
Representative Minter,
Yes.
Representative Cook,
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
Aye, motion carries. And hearing that Representative Mentor, I don't believe she was on when we called the roll, so please record
Yes.
her as being
Thank you.
present. And-
Thank you so much, Senator. Yes, I am present remotely.
All right, thank you. And thank you for Ms. Redmond, Ms. Johnson, and Mr. Pauley. We'll look forward to hearing from you next month on this. Appreciate your attendance this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is the Department for Medicaid Services, 2 contracts with first is Myers and Stoffers. If representatives from the cabinet are here, or the department are here, please identify yourself for the record.
Good morning. This is Veronica Cecil, Senior Deputy Commissioner for the Kentucky Department for Medicaid Services.
Good
Hello,
morning.
I am Angie Parker, Director of Program Quality and Outcomes for the Department for Medicaid Services.
Is this everyone?
Yes, it is.
All right, thank you. Then both Chairman, Co-Chair Cook and I have questions. I'll defer to Co-Chairman Cook.
Thank you, Chairman Meredith. Question, just brief, like an explanation, please. We don't have a lot to go on here, and it's got a note in here. It's not practical or feasible to bid the document, and just like some explanation on that, please.
Absolutely. So Myers and Stauffer was originally contracted as part of Senate Bill 50 and implementation of a single managed care organization, pharmacy benefit manager. So they had a previous contract to assist us with a procurement as required by the statute and implementation of the single MCO PBM. What we discovered as we approached the July 1st go live this year is that we really needed to continue that support to ensure a successful implementation. So we did around March or April, because we anticipated the need for that support. We have this is basically an extension, although the previous contract ended on June 30th. We did discover we really needed to continue that support to help us post go live, and that's why we did submit this as the not practical to bid. Obviously, Myers and Stauffer had already been involved with the Senate Bill 50 implementation. They had the knowledge. Not only did they assist with the PBM procurement, but with the implementation. And because of that knowledge, it obviously was more practical to have them continue.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions regarding this, and excuse us again. In the letter that we were sent regarding this, it was a little bit confusing to me because obviously I'm intimately aware of Senate Bill 50, but it says that the PBM departed this position. Who are you referring to there?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, Senator Meredith?
Let me read the entire text here. In response to Senate Bill 50 of the Commonwealth's 2020 legislative session, the Department of Medicaid Services is required to procure a pharmacy benefit manager to contract separately with each Kentucky Medicaid managed care operation or organization. The PBM departed this position, and due to Myers Stauffer's pharmacy and PBM implementation expertise, and this being a critical component of the revised Kentucky Medicaid managed care program, Myers and Stauffer is a viable vendor contracted to support this initiative. So that statement about the PBM departed the position.
Yeah, I believe that is a horrendous grammatical error. So I apologize for the error that's in the letter. I'm not 100% sure what we anticipated, but MedImpact is the PBM, and Myers and Stauffer's is contracted to help support that go live.
So what you're saying from your testimony is this is a continuation of the past contract with Meyer-Stauffer to continue this implementation. How much was the previous contract?
I apologize. I don't have that in front of me. Yeah, and again, that was time limited. But I'm happy to get that information to you.
Well, thanks.
The other thing I would like to mention is that, this is an hourly contract. We do not anticipate needing the full, we put a date of December 31st. We anticipate that the work will be completed sometime in October, and that we do not anticipate utilizing all of the funds that have been calculated for this.
Well, if you would explain to me again why we're needing these services.
Absolutely. So generally so first of all, let me say that this has never been done anywhere in the country. We're the first state to do this type of hybrid model.
I appreciate that, and I think that's part of the reason that the cabinet had a hesitancy to head off with the single source people. I understand that. Thank you.
Correct. Yeah. So there, because of that, certainly we needed to develop a lot of new policies, and we also, for this, we're moving over 1 million people into a single PBM, and going from 6 different PBMs to one. And, generally state Medicaid agencies have multiple pharmacists, 4 to 6 pharmacists employed to manage this, a pharmacy benefit this large. Our pharmacy director did leave in March, and we felt like it was important so we only had one pharmacy director with the department. So we felt it important that we have that expertise. We have those extra resources because we all have our day-to-day work that continues as we move through an implementation like this. So we really needed to have somebody who could focus on I tell you, the largest and probably most valuable service that they provided to us was pulling in all of the questions and answers. We had over 400 questions and answers as part of the implementation coming from the managed care organizations, from the PBM, and from DMS. We needed to ensure that everybody knew their roles and responsibilities. And so that took a lot of communication. That's critical for a successful implementation like this. So we just could not have done it without having that extra help. And now that we're post go live, again, we want to make sure that we're attentive and responsive to any challenges or barriers that have been created as a result of that. And they have been helpful in us mitigating those, helping us understand what different policies or decisions that we could make, because they have a great deal of expertise. They have pharmacists that have extensive knowledge, across the state, across the nation. So it was invaluable expertise to us.
I would agree with you. I'm sure losing your pharmacy director wasn't something anyone anticipated, particularly in this monumental transition that we're making. And I can certainly see how they feel this role. And just for the committee's benefit, we're looking at $567,000. Mm-hmm. Again, you're going to get me how much we paid in the previous contract, because I'd like to know that. But our projections, being the senators involved in this thing, as well as the representatives, that we think there's a potential of $500 million in savings each year. So this is an investment in our future. So I certainly understand that and understand the explanation. Are there any questions, comments regarding this particular contract? If not, I entertain a motion to approve it.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Co-Chair Cook, seconded by Representative Bowling. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Hornback, Senator Southworth,
Aye.
Senator Yates, Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Hart,
Yes.
Representative Mentor,
Yes.
Representative Cook,
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
Aye. Motion carries. Second contract we have up for consideration for the Department of Medicaid Services is Island Peer Review. And both Co-Chair Cook and I have questions. I'll defer to him again. Okay. Question I have, and excuse me while I find my note here. You know, our contract description says provide funds for state Medicaid agencies is required under federal law to contract with an independent external quality review organization. And is this done on an annual basis, biannual basis? How frequently is this done?
It's done annually.
Annually. And how are the results of that report distributed to legislators?
It is posted on our website, on the Department of Medicaid Services website.
Have excuse me, back up a second. What's the timing of these reports? Is this on a fiscal year, calendar year?
It is. We have to turn in this report by April 30th of each year to CMS for the review.
Yeah, this is a federally mandated requirement.
I appreciate that, but I'm always concerned about sometimes just checking the boxes to make sure we comply with federal guidelines, and just wonder if there's anything that was really outstanding in the previous quality review.
Well, and with any quality review, when you're looking at that through the MCOs, that's what quality is evaluating possible performance initiatives and where you can address concerns. And looking at the report there, we do have some work to do. The MCOs have some work to do on certain HEDIS measures that we're looking at, as well as diabetes. We're doing a performance improvement plan on diabetes this year, as well as social determinants of health. So it does give us an opportunity to evaluate where we need as a state and Medicaid and assist our Medicaid beneficiaries in including their health care.
Well, I think there'd be a wealth of information in these reports, and I'm very curious. And as co-chair of Medicaid Oversight, I would think maybe we'd ask you all to make a report to give us a summary of the findings at one of our future meetings. So just kind of put you on notice for that. But
and I can certainly send you the actual copy of the report as well.
Well, I appreciate that it's on the internet, but there's a lot of stuff on the internet. So
so okay. I understand. I can certainly share it.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Not going to entertain a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Did you catch those? All right. Thank you. All those in favor of the motion vote aye. All opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Hornback, Senator Southworth,
Aye.
Senator Yates, Representative Bowling,
Yes.
Representative Hart,
Yes.
Representative Minter,
Yes.
Representative Cook,
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
Aye. Motion carries. Appreciate you all being available to us this morning and answering our questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the pulled list with Eastern Kentucky University is number 54 on the routine PSC green list. If representatives are here, please identify yourself for the record. Come forward and identify yourself for the record. Always good to see our friends from Eastern Kentucky University. And Senator Southworth has questions for you. Senator Southworth?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What I wanted to get a handle on is Eastern Kentucky University has this COVID testing on their list, and I've heard a number of other institutions specifically state that, they're not going to be providing COVID testing moving forward after a certain time frame, which is approximately now or this fall or whatnot. I want to try to get a handle on why we need $100,000 for COVID testing. That's question one. Question two is is this the same PCR testing? Is it going 35 cycles and all this stuff where we're not really even sure if it's accurate too? And third question piece of this is it says it's general funds 100%. Trying to figure out with the zillion dollars that's come in for various COVID things through the various federal acts, is that a flow through, or are we actually paying out of agency funds for this versus, let's say, federal funds specifically for COVID testing?
Excuse me, is your mic on? Should have a green light.
My mic?
No, our presenters here.
Oh,
Now, can you
sorry.
hear me better?
Yes.
I apologize.
That's all right.
Sorry
Thank
about
you.
that. Good morning, Senator Southworth. Thank you for the questions. I'll attempt to answer at a high level what I can, and then certainly will defer to my two experts here. In terms of why $100,000, I will tell you that that's an up to amount. At this point, we're not entirely sure. I think the NCAA, and this is mostly an athletics testing contract, and I think the NCAA just recently released what it has deemed its interim guidance on what will be required for NCAA sanctioned sports next academic year. So that when we submitted the contract, it was a bit of a shot in the dark because we weren't sure what was going to be required, and that's an up to amount. We certainly would rather spend less than more, and we will monitor that very carefully. I cannot speak to number two. I have no idea about the testing standards, and I will let Mark address that.
Sure. This is a PCR test. It is the same PCR test that we have utilized in the previous year. This, as Dana mentioned, yes, this is for our student athletes. From the NCAA, we are hearing that the standard is going to be if an individual is not vaccinated, then they would need to be tested weekly. And so that is coming from Dr. Hainline at the NCAA is why this contract exists.
I will also say, and I think it's important to mention, EKU has not taken the position that we're requiring COVID vaccination among any of our student population at this point. And so in order to take that kind of position, I think we are going to have to make testing readily available, but particularly where it's going to be required in these NCAA sanctioned activities. As to your third question, Senator, the general fund, at least I am certainly not a finance background person. I went to law school because I don't do math. But what I understand is this gets paid out of the general fund, and then COVID funds get supplemented as kind of the backstop, and essentially we reimburse ourselves, so to speak, through the COVID funds. But it has to initially be spent out of the university funds in order to meet audit standards on some of those federal guidelines that come with the COVID money. So I fully anticipate, as last year, that this contract would be paid through COVID funds. That's just not a direct payment. As we spend it, we then can draw it down out of the federal COVID money.
Okay, I appreciate your answers, and just full disclosure, so I don't have to explain my vote later. I'll vote no, but I understand the situation you're in. I just want to clarify, and I appreciate you're not requiring the vaccines. That'd be illegal. But the issue, of course, is as we move forward, there is such thing as a flu shot that's available every year. We're not testing everybody for the flu every week. We need to be looking at how to get out of this crazy circus we've been in. And I understand the NCAA may not see it the same way as Kentucky State Legislature, but and certainly some of my colleagues may not see it the same way as I do, but I don't want to be supporting this never-ending, change for the future that, frankly, there are a lot of other things that our student athletes are probably a lot more susceptible to than COVID. I think the statistics are pretty low on numbers of young people that are either affected or affected greatly. Certainly, that's something that I look forward to supporting our agency. So to send that message, I want to be clear. We need to get away from certainly from the vaccines and testing and so forth, particularly for young people, among others. But that will be my vote. But I appreciate and understand the situation you're in.
Thank you, Senator.
Yes, thank you, Senator Southworth. And of course, the NCAA has a lot of issues they have to address, so maybe this is a good way to get some distance from those other issues. But it is what it is. Are there any other questions regarding this contract? If not, entertain a motion to approve it as presented. Motion by Representative Hart, or second?
Second.
Second by Representative Bowling. All those in favor of the motion vote aye. All opposed will vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Hornback, Senator Southworth,
No.
Senator Yates, Representative Bowling,
Yes.
Representative Hart,
Yes.
Representative Mentor,
Yes.
Representative Cook,
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
Just like to explain my vote. I certainly agree with Senator Southworth's position. This thing has really gotten just out of hand, but I will vote in favor of the contract. But I appreciate you making the concern, Senator Southworth. Motion carries. Appreciate you all being here this morning. Always good to see you. Thank you for visiting with us. Next item on the pulled list are with the Finance Office Secretary, and it's number 65, 68. I'm sorry, excuse me. Yep, I'm sorry. Next time on the pull list with Finance Office Secretary, and our numbers 65 through 68 and routine PSC green list, and number 80 on the PSC amendment list. If representatives are here, please identify yourself for the record.
Brian Thomas, General Counsel, Finance and Administration Cabinet.
So you're solo today, sir?
Solo today.
All right, the question I have about this is we have close to $1 million in contracts for the governor's office for legal services. Trying to wrap my arms around why we need these services. Can you tell me how many attorneys are in the governor's office under the title of General Counsel?
I'm not sure, Senator.
You know, we are charged with ensuring that contracts are for services that can't be done by state government or for whatever reason. And I just really struggle with, we're spending almost $1 million for legal services that, in my opinion, should be done by general counsel and staff.
Well, Senator, if I may respond to that. So
yes, you would.
The four contracts, 65 through 68, are for, general legal services for the entire executive branch. Those contracts, which I think they're $100,000, not to exceed $100,000, are contracts that are, will be used if needed. And so we are not currently, expending funds, but if cases arise or situations arise where additional support for individual legal offices is needed, then these contracts may be utilized.
Then why aren't we presented contracts for those services when those services are needed, rather than give a blank check for in this case, $400,000?
Again, Senator, this is not a blank check. We are not expending any funds on these contracts currently. However, if cases do arise, in the future where additional support is needed for, either, various cabinets or agencies throughout the executive branch, these contracts will be an option if necessary. And so they will only be utilized in situations where, internal staff or agency staff or, need additional support.
Well, I think you're missing the point. Again, the responsibility of this committee is to make sure that these are services that could be done or should be done by current resources at hand. So what you're asking us to do is give kind of retroactive approval to services that we have no way of questioning as to whether they could or should have been handled by general counsel And
Again,
just for point of clarification for you, I know from the previous administration that they never engaged outside counsel for the executive branch.
Well, I'm sorry, Senator. I mean, I know that just from, when Governor Rivera took office and I was appointed to this role, I stepped into the finance seat, and absolutely the prior administration had legal contracts that they had entered into. So, I mean, I can, provide those to you if you wish, but so I may not understand.
Well, it's funny, I don't recall, and I've been on this committee. This is my 5th session. I don't recall contracts like this under the previous administration. Now, I appreciate that other cabinets may have to engage outside counsel, but we employ more attorneys here than probably any other entity in the state of Kentucky, and there's 2 issues here. One, either there's not enough manpower, and I know under the Office of General Counsel that they have more attorneys than the previous administration, or they don't have the expertise necessary to address these issues that we're talking about here. And again, I'm going to remind you that previously administration, they didn't have these contracts. So I don't recall ever seeing contracts like this before.
Well, again, these contracts are for situations where, if situations arise where there is not significant or there's not enough internal support to address cases, that agencies and cabinets will have the ability to utilize these contracts if necessary.
Well, specific to contract number 80 under the PSC amendment list, that's a very specific service that they've been engaged for, which again, I would think that General Counsel specifically should be able to handle. And that's a sizable contract, almost $450,000 that they're asking approval for. Why?
So that.
Well, my question is why we have General Counsel and these folks are supposed to be hired for this purpose, they're not capable of addressing these issues.
That particular contract was let to support the executive branch in terms of constitutional and statutory challenges. It was led at a time when we were in the middle of the pandemic, and the executive branch was facing a number of legal challenges, and that contract has been utilized to support the executive branch, and in terms of its responsibilities in addressing various and sundry pieces of litigation.
Well, I'll remind you that in the previous administration, then Attorney General Beshear sued our state 9 times, and those were all constitutional issues that were being challenged. And again, General Counsel never had to hire outside counsel to address those. And 7 of those 9 cases was won by the previous administration. So why do we have to engage outside counsel? It's because the governor doesn't have confidence in the people he has in his office, or why is it necessary to expend these additional funds?
Senator, I cannot comment as to what the Bevan administration chose to do or not to do, but again, as I explained previously, the contract number 80 that you referenced was let during a time when we were in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the executive branch was inundated by lawsuits.
Well, I'm going to ask you again, specific to the 4 contracts for $100,000 apiece. How can we as a committee do our duties to make sure these are things that could have been handled by attorneys with General Counsel?
Well, that's part of the, Senator, that's part of the scope of the contract. The scope of the contract indicates that those contracts will be utilized when The resources of the executive branch are, it's either unable or inappropriate to address those particular matters. And so those contracts will only be utilized in those situations.
So you're saying trust you?
I'm saying that is part of the, that is part of the scope of the contract.
You have to forgive me. I'm still struggling with this because I've got no sense of security here that, again, you're asking for $400,000 in funds. Maybe we'll spend when we might need on an as-needed basis. But I don't know how we validate that these are things that could not be handled by in-house counsel. Wouldn't it be better when you got these situations? And everyone well knows my aversion to retroactive approval contracts. But if you've got a specific situation that requires outside counsel, why you couldn't go ahead and do that for those specific instances and come back to us with a retroactive approval? Wouldn't that make more sense and allow us to fulfill our responsibilities?
Senator, the advantage to undertaking this course of action is it allowed us to RFP. It allowed us to, have that RFP out on the street for a longer period of time, to score those RFPs and to negotiate a price, absent the pressure of, a piece of litigation that may require a determination that the contract is not practical bid and kind of force us to forego the RFP process.
Well, again, we're facing potentially $1 million in legal services beyond what's currently in-house. And $1 million may not be a lot to you, but it's a lot to me. You can divide this amongst the 6 counties in my district, and if I could go to them and say, "Hey, I've got $150,000 for you that you can use for whatever," they would be ecstatic. They'd think, "Wow, that is really something." But I can't do that because we're continuing to have a shortage of funds, shortage of revenue, and I'm just amazed what we're willing to spend money for in things that we won't spend money for, and this just bothers me greatly. I think that if you have competent counsel in-house, that you don't need outside counsel, and I can't imagine everybody being so busy that we couldn't just work a few extra hours to do these things. But I can't, in good conscience, support these contracts. To that end, I'll entertain the motion if there's no other questions, comments regarding these contracts.
I got a comment.
Representative Hart, thank you.
I got a comment, and I'm trying to wrap my mind around this. You, when asked how many people on staff was considered general counsel, your answer was you wasn't sure. Well, if you're not able to understand or know how many people you have on staff, how can we trust you to spend these funds with due diligence and responsibility? I mean, that's the big red flag here. If we've got general counsel on staff, if there's a particular area where you need a particular expertise, I understand why these contracts are needed. But your answer was you didn't know how many people on staff was considered general counsel. So I don't think we can approve these contracts until we at least find out how many people we have on staff that are general counsel.
Well, Representative Hart, thank you for the question. Maybe I'll allow me to clarify.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I believe Senator Hornback's question was how many counsel are on staff at the governor's office. So I'm general counsel of the Finance and Administration Cabinet.
Okay. Well, okay. Let me rephrase. Then let me rephrase and ask a direct question. are these funds these contracts that we are approving, are they for the finance cabinet, or will they be used for the finance cabinet or other cabinets?
So these contracts, and specifically I'm referring to the, really all these contracts, they are for the executive branch. Finance and administration let these contracts, but they, will be, able to be utilized by the executive branch.
Okay. That clarifies a little bit more for me. Thank you.
Could you explain that again? You said these contracts are for the executive branch. So kind of you got a pool of resources that you can use, but they may not be specific to issues within the executive branch?
No, I believe these contracts will be utilized for issues that arise in the executive branch. And so that's, the various and sundry cabinets throughout the executive branch.
Well, you just muddied the waters for me a little bit more. Again, you have an office counsel, but you don't know how many attorneys are in that particular area.
I'm sorry, Senator. Will you? I don't understand your question.
Well, the governor has general counsel. How many people serve under general counsel?
Senator, sitting here right now, I can guess, but I don't know the answer.
Well, if I told you that in the previous administration there were only 3 attorneys in the office of general counsel, and let's just say for discussion purposes, today there are 6. Does that make a difference in whether these contracts are needed or not?
Senator, respectfully, I don't believe it does. Again, these contracts are let for situations where litigation arises, that an assessment is made in terms of whether internal staff is either unable or it's inappropriate for internal staff to handle those duties. And in those situations, these contracts will be utilized.
Well, I make the comment, we employ more attorneys here than anybody that I know of. And I'm sure we got more attorneys probably than we have legislators. And, if there's a need for assistance, couldn't that be pulled from other areas?
Again, these contracts will be utilized in situations where it is determined that there's not internal staff sufficient to address the concerns that are going to be addressed by the contractor.
Even if we have maybe hundreds of attorneys, then there may not be enough resources to handle all those.
Senator, my response to that is, if there are hundreds of attorneys, there are hundreds of attorneys that have job duties, litigation, administration, and so when particular matters arise, you have to make an assessment in terms of whether there's sufficient internal staff to handle a situation, and in those situations where there's not, it is appropriate to use a contractor.
You made reference to the RFP. How many firms responded to the RFP?
I believe that all 4 firms that responded to the RFP, there may have been 5 firms that responded to the RFP, but I believe all of them received a contract. But honestly, I don't know sitting here today.
So we have an RFP that we only got 5 responses to.
I believe we got 5 responses. Yes.
Out of the multitude of law firms in Kentucky and throughout the United States, we only got 5 responses to an RFP.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Well, certainly, please.
So this might be back to our 45A discussion. I know we had last month discussed needing to look at how things work. And I'm not 100% clear. I was wondering if anybody, whether our guests or our committee staff or somebody could help me understand the issue when we have these up to $100,000 contracts and we've got these guys on hold. You know, we've got all these law firms essentially waiting in the wings for whenever we call them and say, okay, now we got a job for you. And is it something that we could do in a more master agreement style contract where we could have them on hold, have the RFP, have the negotiated rate of 125, but not actually be using it and actually issue a new contract, one of those retroactive approvals that you mentioned? You know, when something pops up and all of a sudden everybody's out on vacation, we need to have this thing filed tomorrow. Quick call the Goldberg Simpson and they'll pull it out for us. And then we throw it in the contract. Okay, we're retroactive approval on this X amount specific to this X project. Is that something that's already within the scope of our process? Or is it something that we need to look at in the future so that, as you mentioned, we can actually keep tabs on, you know, doing our job of, you know, was this actually, you know, meeting all the criteria of unable to find another attorney in state, so forth, other besides just these blanket pre-approvals that we have no idea if we'll use and how much and for what.
Well, I think you have a couple issues, Central Southwards. First is the master agreement. I haven't been able to find anyone who can explain to me, you know, what should fall under a master agreement. It seems to be a term of convenience for some folks. If they don't want it to come before this committee, then it becomes part of the master agreement. And that's why I plead that we should have some definition to this. And, as far as this, I don't have any problem with the process itself if the process is fair and it's deliberate, which to me suggests maybe it's not when, again, you have an RFP with multiple law firms in Kentucky and the United States, and we only get 5 requests for proposals. And another thing that concerns me is you look at all the legal contracts we approve, and it's the same players almost every time. So I'm not sure how to improve the process. I guess that's a discussion for another day.
Got a question, Senator Meredith?
Yes, please.
My question is there a process for which the executive branch would consult, I guess, with the Attorney General's office, before farming out litigation to outside sources? Is there at least a conversation there, to see if it's what's best for the Commonwealth of Kentucky, if they have extra, general counsel, extra attorneys sitting around that could help them on the issue? That might help us save money as well. Is there a conversation had there?
And I'm sorry, I'm not sure who. I couldn't tell. Representative
Bowling.
Thank you, Representative. I apologize. I just couldn't tell who was speaking. So if situations arise where consultation with the Attorney General's office is appropriate, that's certainly something that probably or could be undertaken. However, in the majority of cases, the various and sundry cabinets under the executive branch umbrella have internal legal offices that handle their legal issues. And again, if internal staff there is not appropriate, that's when these contracts would be looked at to see if they should be utilized.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? If not, is there a motion to approve? And this, we're acting at the moment on contracts 65 through 68. Is there a motion to approve? Is there a motion to disapprove?
Motion.
Motion by Representative Hart. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Co-Chair Cook. All those in favor of the motion to decline these contracts, vote aye. All opposed, vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Hornback, Senator Southworth,
Aye.
Senator Yates, Representative Bowling,
Yes.
Representative Hart,
Yes.
Representative Mentor.
No, briefly explain my vote.
Please proceed.
This is, I appreciate the points my colleagues have made, but the Commonwealth has a lot of legal needs, and it's not unusual at all to hire outside counsel for certain jobs, particularly complex civil litigation. And we're oversight board, but again, I don't think it's our job to micromanage when general counsel needs to bring in people with specific expertise. So again, I vote no on the motion to disapprove.
Representative Cook,
Yes.
Chairman Meredith,
Explain my vote as well, and I vote aye. This is an attempt to micromanage any segment of government. What it's attempting to do is build accountability into the process, and that's what concerns me. Again, the responsibility of this committee is to make sure that we're not expending resources that could or should be handled within state government. We have no way of determining that other than retrospectively doing it. And I still say there's a process to do that by actually identifying what services are needed. And if that requires a retroactive approval of this committee, I'd have no problem with that whatsoever. But just to carte blanche, give folks $400,000 to do whatever somebody determines needs to be done doesn't allow us to fulfill our responsibility. So, clerk, and the vote is? Vote is 5-1. Contracts are declined. Thank you. Appreciate you being with us this morning. I need to act on contract number 80, which is on the PSC amendment list, which we've also had discussion on. Is there a motion with regard to that?
I have some questions on it.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Co-Chair Cook. Please proceed.
This is number 80, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is this the same firm in this request that is this vendor the one from the Kentucky Wired program and negotiated contract that was clearly less than advantageous for the Commonwealth?
Representative, I do not believe so. I'm unfamiliar with the situation that you're referring to.
So this is not the same vendor who covered the Kentucky Wired then?
Again, I'm sorry, I'm unfamiliar with that situation. I am familiar, at least to some degree, familiar with Kentucky Wired. I'm unaware of any dealings with this particular firm with Kentucky Wired, but I may just be ignorant of those facts. I don't believe they've had any deal.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions regarding this contract? If not, let me just say that this appears to be a continuation of litigation regarding previous action. I've got some serious reservations about approving this contract the first go around. Same reservations exist, but I don't know how in this particular situation you change horses in midstream. I think it's very inappropriate to have to engage outside counsel for something I think that the general counsel should be able to do, should be qualified to do. If not, then they shouldn't be general counsel to the governor. But with that said, I will make a motion to approve this contract.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor of the motion vote aye. All opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Hornback, Senator Southworth,
Aye.
Senator Yates, Representative Bowling,
Yes.
Representative Hart,
Yes.
Representative Mentor,
Pass.
Representative Cook,
No.
Chairman Meredith.
Aye. And the vote is?
Mr. Chair,
Yes. Excuse
Mr.
me.
Chair, I'd like to change my vote to. I'm sorry, I have a bad connection. I'd like to change my vote to no.
The vote's 4-2. There's not enough to pass the contract. Is there a motion to disapprove the contract? Motion by Co-Chair Cook. Is there a second? Second by Representative Hart. All those in favor of disapproving this contract will vote aye. All opposed will vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Hornback, Senator Southworth,
Aye.
Senator Yates, Representative Bowling,
No.
Representative Hart,
Yes.
Representative Mentor,
No.
Representative Cook,
Aye.
Chairman Meredith.
Aye. Vote is 4-2 again, so this will go to the Secretary of Finance for excuse me for our sidebar conversation, but again, since there was not enough votes to approve the contract or disapprove the contract, and it goes to the Office of Secretary of Finance for final determination of the contract. So thank you. Appreciate you being present this morning. Next item on the agenda is from the Justice Office, Office of Secretary of Justice Cabinet, and is number 69 on the routine PSC list. If representatives are here, please identify yourself for the record.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. I'm Ronnie Baston. I'm the Deputy Secretary of the Justice and Public Safety Cabinet. I know we're here to talk today about the Office of the State Medical Examiner toxicology contract. With me today, I have the two people that have worked most directly on that contract, Ms. Jennifer Washabaugh and Jessica Peach. And I would offer them for the questions.
Yes, we have questions from Co-Chair Cook and Senator Southworth. Co-Chair Cook, I'll defer to you first.
Thanks, Chairman Meredith. I guess to start off, there's been a lot of chatter on this one. I've had several phone calls on this, so if we could just start off with a better explanation than the couple sentences that we have here, that would be great.
Yes, sir. Thank you for allowing us to be here this morning. As it turns out, this was actually just the normal RFP process. It was time for this contract to be rebid. That happens generally every 6 years on a professional service contract. So what happened was we put an RFP out and just generally went through the process in order to keep the integrity of the contract itself. So I'm not really sure what type of detail you're looking for.
More details about the contract. There's just been I guess with the old coming out and the new coming in, and there's received several phone calls, complaints. The actual cost is going up, and if we could just get some explanation on that, that would be very helpful.
Okay. So it is for the first time in many, many years that we have awarded to a new vendor. The Commonwealth had their previous vendor for probably close to 10 years or more at least. So obviously this particular contract handles all three of our ME's offices, along with coroner services for toxicology coroner services for all 120 counties. The contract went into place on July 1st. And of course, the new vendor, NMS Labs, could not perform any services on that contract until that date. A rollout of this particular size does take some time. There were toxicology kits that had to be delivered. There were accounts that had to be set up all across the state. Just general communications back and forth. We did have some challenges in that process, as we didn't have as current of information as we were hoping for as far as reaching out to all 120. In that process, though, our vendor, has done, we believe, everything that they possibly can to make contact with each one of those individuals, get those kits to them, and move the contract forward. It's just, as I said, anytime there is a major rollout of something this size, it of course takes a little bit of time to navigate all of that. As far as cost, the cost was negotiated with our current vendor. We negotiated to pretty close to the same prices that we were paying with the previous vendor. And then the contract cost itself, the $1.3 million, was based off those negotiated prices and the past usage for this particular type. So, does the questions you have?
Yeah, I appreciate the explanation. I understand with change comes a lot of questions and delays and stuff that has to be worked out. And just we've had a lot of concerns about that one. So just very interested in finding out more about it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Senator Southworth, you have questions?
Yes, I wanted to get a little better handle on perhaps, apparently we've been using a vendor for this work for a long time, but there's been a lot of concern about speed and efficiency in the state lab. And I'm kind of curious how this ties in, because my understanding, and maybe I'm off, that the medical examiner's office was using the state lab, but they got so behind we started contracting out for certain things. Is that stuff that we are going to end up being able to bring back into in-house, or is this going to be winding down work from the state lab, or is this just a buffer in case we get behind, or we've never used the state lab for this particular thing, and what is this particular thing that we're testing here?
So, Senator Southworth, this particular contract is for the forensic toxicology services provided, like I said, not only within our 3 ME's offices, but the 120 coroners offices as well. I personally am not aware that they've used the state lab for services that this contract would have normally covered. The Justice and Public Safety Cabinet Office of State Medical Examiner has had this contract in place for, like I said, at least through 2008, I think was the last that I could find on it. So there may have been some crossover at one time, but I'm not aware of what that was. I do foresee that we will continue to use this type of contract, that it would be something we would go forward with continually.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Representative Bowling, you have a question?
I did. Thank you, Chairman Meredith. Let me ask you on this. You said, comparing it to our previous vendor, you said the pricing, both the contract and other costs were fairly close. What does fairly close mean? I'm new on this committee and I'm trying to learn. So if you could please educate me on that.
Okay. So on this particular contract, we knew, of course, what we had been paying for the majority of our samples, of course, to the previous vendor. With this bid, we negotiated down to, I think for the most part, they're pretty close. There may be a 50-cent difference in one of the panels that we use most often. So we basically just went through a negotiation process in order to get those costs as close to what we had currently been paying with the previous vendor.
Okay, so the cost is very minimal. I don't know how many tests we do, how many panels we send out. I mean, 50 cents, not a lot on 100 panels, but if you're doing, 50 million panels, well, yeah, that's a lot of money. So I just have no idea how to put that in perspective. I mean, how many panels are normally sent a year?
And I apologize because I don't have the number right off the top of my head. I do believe there was an estimated in the RFP itself. Jessica Peach is the buyer and she's with us. She may have that number. or at least be able to pull that out for you before we finish up here. I want to say an estimated 5,000 or something, but please forgive me because that's just what's popping into my head.
Okay, so we're looking at an increased cost on the panels, maybe $2,500 if there's 5,000.
The increased costs themselves, no. We negotiated the two panels that were most utilized in the previous vendor. We negotiated the price with the current vendor. One is actually 50 cents less. I think the other one is probably spot on.
Okay.
So the increase is due to what we expect to be increased usage.
Okay. The county coroners, have they seen their cost increase any, in the implementation from the old vendor to the new vendor? Is there any upfront costs that they've had to kind of carry? Is there increased cost moving forward day to day and what they're going to be spending, sending their results to the lab and getting the results?
No, sir. This particular contract is handled completely within the Justice and Public Safety Cabinet, and we cover the cost for those coroners' offices.
Okay. What about the timing on the reports? As far as you send them off to this lab, and when do you expect to get the results back? I know we had a huge backlog that we worked through throughout the years, and I know that was on a different test. But compared to the previous vendor, what is the turnaround time on getting the test results?
So the contract is based off of a 2-week time frame. What'll happen is those initial results those initial samples, when they send in, they have a basic 2 weeks in order to return those. That is pretty well inside the guidelines of the previous contract as well. Now, what will happen is if further testing is needed once they've gotten there, so maybe the state medical examiner's office requests something further or an additional recommendation, then of course those types of tests could extend that time frame somewhat. But we kept the time frame from the previous contract. Okay.
Thank you. And are they meeting it? I mean, I know it's I guess we had 2 weeks yesterday, but have they been meeting that, or do you all expect them to? I'm sure you expect them to, but I guess I would maybe once we get into this contract a little more, make sure they're meeting that and they're fulfilling their duties on that. And one last question. On this vendor, were there references sent out to other folks, other states, whoever may use this lab, on the type of work they did and what type of vendor they were? And what were the responses on that, if so?
Okay, so we did not send out a request for references from other states. It was a fairly straight up RFP process, and that was not one of the things that was listed. So we did not do that. Then the first part of your question, I believe you were asking as far as the timeline. There has been some confusion that has gone out. I'm not positive that they have even received their first sample. Okay. The previous contract ended 6/30. We had requested that the vendor return any samples that had not been able to be completed to the Louisville Medical Examiner's office. And then those samples were to be sent on to our new vendor. The last I had spoke, which I believe was last week, those samples had still not been returned. So we are seeing an increase in time delay due to that. So we are working through the channels in order to get those particular samples back in our possession so that we can forward those on. There also may have been some confusion with the Kentucky Coroners Association on whether or not this contract was viable at the time. And therefore, I'm not really certain that any of our coroners have started sending samples to the new vendor at this time. They should be.
I wanted to speak to that. I got an email on it this morning. So our new vendor had stated that they have received samples from about 7 counties so far. I'm not sure the date they received them, but they did let us know that.
Okay. Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, one more question, if you may. So not getting the references. So this company, there was an opportunity to see kind of what their performance had been with previous states or entities, and we did not take advantage of that in seeking this contract. Is that correct?
That is correct. We did not ask for any other references.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is Senator Meredith. I'd just like some clarification on this pricing thing. A lot of discussion about this, but I had heard in the aggregate that this bid is what's 1.3 million. I've heard that's 300,000 more than the previous contract. Is that not true?
That is pretty well close to true. We base this off of, it's not necessarily the bid. So I don't want to give the impression that they presented a cost to us and that's what we went with. We negotiated the cost of the individual testing type, situation. And then we based the overall contract amount on past usage of that testing. So the 1.3 million that you see is not based off of a bid that was received from our particular vendor.
You've confused me even more. You have an
I'm so
RFP.
sorry.
You only have 2 people respond. Is that correct? The previous company?
That is correct.
The company that you award the contract to had the high bid, and then you negotiated down from that to what's called a more reasonable price. Is that fair?
Correct.
Why would we have not accepted the lower bid?
Okay.
Particularly with the
So
vendor that we've had in place for you say almost a decade.
Okay. We did receive 2 bids from our solicitation. Unfortunately, this vendor missed a mandatory requirement in their bid submission, and therefore we were put in a situation where we could not go forward as far as an evaluation on that particular bid, on that particular vendor.
Explain that part of that. They missed something critical. What did they miss?
So at this time, Senator Meredith, there is a protest that has been filed by that particular vendor with the Finance and Administration Cabinet. It is under review, and I'm not positive that I can release the details of that situation at this point. If it would be acceptable, I would like to verify that information with them and maybe follow up with you on that.
It'll be acceptable, but I don't think that we can act on this contract today. And it's very disturbing that we're looking at a 30% increase in cost, and really no justification other than the other bidder did not qualify for whatever reason that's being protested. It just this doesn't make sense to me. But let me defer to Co-Chair Cook because I think he has a question.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Senator Meredith, and that's where I went the same direction I was going to go. If you said that the price was close to the same, and my question was, if the price was close to the same, which it's not, it's higher. Why did we go with the one that's higher with the vendors being there? What grievance did we have against the previous vendor? Also wondering where the county coroners on this. Were they consulted at any point in this process?
We're not consulted that I'm aware of. This is a contract with the Justice and Public Safety Cabinet that they are allowed to utilize if funding is available for that. So I don't believe this is a contract that we are required to offer to them, but we do. So.
Okay. Thank you.
We're getting ready.
Chairman?
Yes, please.
I was just going to ask if a motion for deferral would be in order if we needed to wait a little bit to try to see what straightens out with this protest, or if a month is not helpful. I don't know what the timeline is on that process.
I think that's appropriate, Senator Southworth, given that there's a lot of unanswered questions today in a very nebulous situation. So if that's your motion, I'll accept it. Is there a second? Second by Representative Bowling. All those in favor of deferring action on this contract, vote aye. All opposed, vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Hornback, Senator Southworth,
Aye.
Senator Yates, Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Hart.
Yes.
Representative Mentor.
Explain my vote.
Please.
I'm voting no because I don't really see a need to defer this for another month.
Representative Cook.
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
I'll explain my vote as well. I'm a yes because we've got a 30% increase in the contract, which really can't be quantified for any reason. We're getting ready to enter into a budget year where everybody's demanding additional resources, and it's just not there. And there's just not a comfort level that we can look at $300,000 just because. I think we need more information. But with that, the motion carries. The contract is deferred to next month, and we will look forward to hearing from you folks when we come back in August. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I would like to change my vote, please, on item 80, the PSC contract. I would like to change my vote from no to yes, please.
On which motion? The motion to disapprove or the motion to review the contract?
Yeah, are you changing your motion on the motion to disapprove or motion to approve?
I am changing my vote on approval of item 80 on the PSC amendment list from a no to a yes.
Duly noted. Then that makes the vote, I believe, 5-1. So the contract is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the pool list are Kentucky's retirement teachers retirement system. Their numbers 87, 88, and 91 on the routine PSC green list. If representatives are here, please identify yourself for the record.
Excuse me. Good morning, Bo Barnes. I serve as Deputy Executive Secretary and as General Counsel for the Teachers Retirement System.
Good morning, Mr. Barnes. Are you by yourself today?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
First contract is 87. I request that be pulled. We've done, we won't say we, but you folks have done business with this firm for a long time, have you not?
And I apologize, Mr. Chair. Which contract?
This is Ice Miller.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, we have.
And in addition to providing the services that's in the description here, implementation of Internal Revenue Service codes and requests for private rulings and so forth, haven't they also been involved in litigation? They've represented Kentucky Teachers Retirement System.
No, I don't recall Ice Miller representing us in a matter of litigation. I'm trying to think. I've been at the retirement system for a long time. I don't recall a specific example of them representing us in a court case.
Okay, so the scope of their service has always been administrative in nature, giving interpretation of what Internal Revenue Service guidelines are and how to comply with private rulings and so forth.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Other question I have is, I understand it's very specialized work, but $450 per hour?
Yes, sir. It is very specialized work. Ice Miller is a large law firm. They represent a lot of pension plans across the nation, and then they do have expertise in federal tax law, and they keep up with that. They have staff that do nothing to keep up with the revenue rulings because tax law is changing. It's very important for us to be compliant with federal tax law. Our members are able to make contributions to the retirement system on a tax-deferred basis, which is, an important tax advantage. It's more take-home pay in their paychecks and less going to Washington. So it's something we've not always enjoyed. We've had that for a long time, longer than since I've been there, but we spend a lot of time and effort to make sure we are compliant. We use them on an as-needed basis. So I think the fiscal year that just concluded, $33,750 in fees to Ice Miller, but they do have tremendous experience. And a lot of that we can just pick up the phone. There's something coming out of D.C., what is this? And they can tell us because they keep up with it. And we make sure that we continue to be compliant with federal tax law.
Was there an RFP sent out for this?
Yes, sir.
How many responded?
There were 7 responses to this one.
And what was the spread in the hourly rate?
I don't recall, but they were all high. The Ice Miller fee is competitive with folks, with other firms that do this kind of work who have the qualifications and the competence to do this kind of work.
Again, a lot of money.
It is, but I would say it is well spent, given the savings, the tax savings that we have for our teachers and their paychecks.
Well, I respect you and defer to your judgment on it, but it does give me a sense of security that at least there's an RFP and there were people that responded, so yeah. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Are there any other questions regarding 87? If not, I entertain a motion to approve this contract.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Representative Bowling, seconded by Co-Chair Cook. All those in favor vote aye. All opposed, no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Hornback. Senator Southworth.
Aye.
Senator Yates. Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Hart.
Yes.
Representative Mentor.
Yes.
Representative Cook.
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
Aye. Motion carries. On contracts number 88 and 91, Co-Chair Cook has questions. Co-Chair Cook.
Thank you, Senator Meredith. And, sir, thanks for your explanation. And that sums up the same place I was going with this. The maximum rate was exceeded and just needed some whenever we do that, I feel like we need an explanation of why we're going there. And I feel like you summed it up pretty well. If that all falls in line with contract 87, my questions are answered.
Yes, sir, it does.
Thank you. I move that we approve the contract.
Motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Representative Bowling. All those in favor will vote aye. All opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Hornback. Senator Southworth.
Aye.
Senator Yates. Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Hart.
Yes.
Representative Mentor.
Yes.
Representative Cook.
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
Aye. Motion carries. And Mr. Barnes, appreciate you being with us this morning. Always appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next item's on the pool list with the Office of Controller, and our numbers 114 through 118 on the routine PSC green list. If representatives are here, please go for the record.
Hello, I'm Joan Graham. I'm with the Office of Controller, Office of Procurement Services within the Finance Administration Cabinet.
Appreciate you being with us this morning.
Thank you.
It's a lot of money you're spending here, 125 million. And the funding source says other 100%. What's the other?
These contracts were let not for the use of the Office of Controller, but for the use of the Cabinet for Health and Family Services, and could potentially be used by other agencies as well. Until they begin to use the contracts, we're unsure of the exact funding. Most likely it will be federal funding with the Cabinet for Health and Family Services.
Can you even speculate as to how much of this 125 million we may actually spend?
The contracts will be used on an as-needed basis, based on the supplemental medical services needed by the agency. As of now, we think the Cabinet for Health and Family Services will need to use these contracts within the next 30 to 60 days. And when they need to use the contract, they are going to issue a delivery order for the exact positions that they need and number of hours that they need. And so that will result in the actual contract that will be sent to the vendor for needed usage. And we can provide a quarterly report on that usage, a quarterly delivery order report, similar to the report you received on the architectural and engineering this month.
So this will be for supplemental staffing for home health agencies, correct? Excuse me, not home health, but health departments, correct?
Probably for the hospitals. I think health departments can use it as well, but mostly for the mental health facilities, hospitals across the state.
And how do they make those requests for services, for assistance?
They would request from multiple of these vendors, or whichever vendors I think may be able to provide staffing in a geographical area that's needed. They would ask for resumes, potential staff, and then they would review those and issue the delivery order for the candidates they feel are most qualified.
Let's go back to the funding source again. I appreciate your explanation. I understand it, but are we saying that potentially some of this could be reimbursed by maybe additional CARES money or current CARES money, or are we looking for a possibility of additional federal assistance in the future?
I think the answer to that is yes, but I would have to defer to the actual agency on their funding.
Will any of this come from the general fund?
Again, it would depend on the agency using the contract. So with the Cabinet for Health and Family Services, I believe their funding would be federal, but I would have to confer with them.
Last question I have for you is, you know, you got contract 118 is with a California firm, and don't know if you're aware or not, but I have a real aversion to doing business with California companies, given that the previous Attorney General prohibits state employees from California to travel to Kentucky in protest of legislation we passed in 2017. And obviously that action was intended to harm the economy of Kentucky. And this was legislation that had absolutely no impact on California whatsoever, but he saw the necessity to do this. So in counter opposition to that, I really don't want to do business with the firm in California. Is this necessary? Can we not divide this amongst the other contracts?
I think that we had 22 vendors respond to this RFP. We wanted to award up to 5 to provide necessary coverage. I think the problem with our agency not awarding to the best evaluated vendors, and we do not have a law that supports eliminating a vendor based on their location. So I think if we had eliminated a vendor from consideration that's from California, that would be protested. And I don't know that we could support that with our laws, the not awarding. Certainly you have the ability to disapprove that contract, but from the solicitation process, I don't think we can eliminate a vendor based on their location legally.
Well, you say you had 22 that responded?
Yes, sir.
Who made the determinations as to who would be selected?
It was an evaluation team. I don't have the names of the individuals on that team.
So you're scoring the proposals?
Yes, sir. It was based on a variety of factors: the vendor's qualifications, their ability to provide 24-hour accessibility. It was mandatory that they have an office in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and then also on evaluation of their recruitment methods, how they located qualified staff, their lead time to provide candidates, and their retention rates.
Well, I would think timeliness would be a major consideration for this. And how does somebody in the West Coast respond timely to manpower needs in Kentucky?
They are required to have an office in Kentucky.
And where is that office located?
Richmond, Kentucky.
How long have they been in Kentucky?
I don't have that information, but I can find out.
All right. Any questions from the committee? Representative Bowling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have just one quick question. On the staffing, for staffing purposes, is this staffing, will it be majority in-person staffing, like actual human in a facility, or will it be through telehealth? Do you have any idea on that?
My understanding, you'll be actual person in the facility. Some of the positions that are on this contract are epidemiologists, laboratory scientists, medical technologists.
Okay. Just kind of broader, not necessarily on this, but telehealth, it offers us a lot. It has a lot to bring to the table, but we are kind of going through this process of going from brick and mortar to more and more telehealth services. And there's a lot of good that comes in that. But there's also, in this process, we've just got to be careful how we spend our money. And if we're doing it through telehealth, if somebody in person does not do a good job, the customers will not go there. And in telehealth, you kind of go to a facility and you're assigned someone, and that's kind of who you have. And I just want to be careful that we go about it the right way to make sure we're providing really good services to all the citizens across the Commonwealth. Thank you.
I'd like to make the committee aware that we did disapprove a contract from a company in California in the amount of $252,000, which University of Louisville had presented to us previously. And that disapproval was not overruled by the Finance Cabinet. So some precedent has already been set there. And again, this really concerns me that we have another state that doesn't recognize the sovereignty of Kentucky. It's protesting legislation that absolutely has no impact on California whatsoever, but they decided to take that action in order to punish the state of Kentucky. And I love this state. It's like a family member. You insult one of a family members, going to have to pay the price for that. And I think we need to send a strong message to California, stay out of Kentucky's business. And I don't know how else to do that other than disapprove these contracts. So to that, just to get that out of the way, I would hope that we can have a motion to disapprove contract 118. Motion by Representative Hart. Is there a second? Second by Co-Chair Cook. All those in favor of disapproving this contract vote aye. All opposed vote nay. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Hornback. Senator Southworth.
Aye.
Senator Yates. Representative Bowling.
Aye.
Representative Hart.
Just a brief comment, Mr. Chairman. I concur with what the chairman said, and I want, moving forward, I hope that we are a little bit more due diligent. I know that in committee meetings past, we might have missed some California companies, but we're not picking on any one company. We're trying to send a message to California. You need to do business with us and let us run our state. You run your state. So with that, I vote yes.
Thank you.
Representative Mentor.
Explain my vote briefly.
Please.
I vote no on the motion to disapprove. We're supposed to be stewards of the people's money. This is the, this is the contract that is the low bid. They can provide the services that the Commonwealth needs, and I do not support the motion to disapprove.
Representative Cook.
Aye.
Chairman Meredith.
I just again like to explain my vote, not to be redundant, but just because this firm was selected doesn't mean they're necessarily the low bid. Remember again that these contracts are scored, supposedly who's the best contract. So you have no guarantee that this contract was awarded because they were a low bidder. And if there are financial implications for Kentucky for denying this contract, remember there's financial implications for California taking the action that they took against our state. But with that, motion passes. Now I'd entertain a motion to approve contracts 14 through 114 through 117. Motion by Co-Chair Cook. Is there a second? Second by Representative Hart. All in favor of the motion vote aye. All opposed will vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Hornback. Senator Southworth.
Aye.
Senator Yates. Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Hart.
Yes.
Representative Mentor. Representative Mentor. Representative Cook.
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
Aye. Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is from the pull list is tourism. It's contract 119 on the routine PSC green list. And we do in fact have a representatives here and live and in person, and glad you could join us this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Mike Manget. I'm Commissioner of the Kentucky Department of Tourism, and looking at the description on the screen of the contract, I certainly understand why you pulled this.
Thank you,
because
sir.
it's not very in-depth.
Well, Senator Southworth has questions. Senator Southworth?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I do have questions, but it does relate to the actual contract itself, because I do, when I see these kind of vagaries, I do ask, get staff to get me the full contract so I can look through some of the details. So I wanted to go through some of these details and get a handle on exactly why we're doing this, how we're doing it, and at this time. So I'll go through a few of those things, and hopefully we can always go back and fill in any details. The first thing, transportation or tourism development plan. It's my understanding, particularly as we're dealing with state parks. I think the last report, which is several years old, that I know of, all but one state park operated in the red. Not sure that we've ever gotten past that point. Seems like every time I have a meeting relating to state parks, in particular, we're on the precipice, just on the cusp of coming out of the
Central Southwest, we've lost you.
And we've
Central Southwest, we're not hearing you. You're cutting up terribly.
for perhaps my life, but why we
We need an answer on this one too. So
that might be the most difficult question I've ever been asked in a committee here.
Are we any better?
I've since Central Southwest.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me okay or not?
We can't hear you. I just sent you a text regarding that, but you're breaking up. We're getting, I won't even say every other word, maybe every other syllable we're getting. But
Mr. Chairman, if it helps.
Mr. Chairman, am I back?
Yes, you're back. Yes.
I apologize. Thank you for getting a hold of me before I totally disappeared, so I would know I disappeared. Let me back up. The cost of doing a tourism development plan, when I feel like we're always saying that we're on the cusp of somehow getting out of the red, particularly as it relates to state parks and so forth. So why we want to spend money on a tourism development plan, particularly when this is the plan. We're going to have probably approximately 4 months trying to get a report together. That's $157,441. We're going to also subcontract for somebody to cover diversity, equity, and inclusion. Trying to figure out exactly what we're trying to do in relation to tourism, if we're trying to start tracking racial statistics of who visits our state or what's going on there. And then the third thing is the hourly rate of consulting on this plan, $312.50 an hour for some consultant. Now, our committee has a cap of $125 for legal fees, which I find incredibly low. But we do have vendors that do meet that. And then when they can't, they do have to issue a letter of explanation to us on exactly why they can't. We understand for legal fees that often does happen. But for a tourism development plan, $312.50 an hour sounds entirely exorbitant. And so those are kind of my three pieces that I'd like to find out precisely what we have in mind and what's going on here.
Sure, and thank you for the questions. There's a lot bundled there, and maybe a little bit of confusion, but let me try to address those. First of all, this is more than a report. What we're working with and contracting with Coraggio Group is on a broad, industry-wide, which includes the private sector, strategic plan for tourism in Kentucky, not just how we move forward, but how we come out of the recovery of the pandemic. Our industry was probably the hardest hit when you look across the board from the pandemic, nationwide, not just here in Kentucky. And I have had the privilege of working in this industry for about 20 years, and as an industry, we've never had a strategic plan like this. When I reference some confusion, you mentioned the state parks. My agency does not oversee state parks. We are a sister agency to the Department of Parks. We're part of the Tourism, Arts, and Heritage Cabinet. Parks will certainly be a part of this plan, but right now what we're doing is we're planning 9 regional listening sessions to go out and bring the partners in. Those partners being local tourism boards, hotels, attractions. The Coraggio group will be facilitating those. We, as a department, are actually not going to be in person in those. We want unvarnished comments from our industry. As far as the contract specifically goes, we had 8 vendors respond to our RFP on this. Coraggio, I don't believe, was the lowest bidder, but they certainly weren't the highest. As far as the diversity initiative portion of this, I'm not really sure how to respond to that. What I will tell you is that we are welcoming to any visitor who wants to come here. Our track record over the years has not been great when it comes to people of color, LGBTQ. So we want some consultation on that. We're welcoming. We want those folks coming in just as much as anyone else. So we know we have some work to do, everything from our messaging to our marketing and everything else. That is an option on the contract. It is not definite that we are going to do that at this point because we have integrated that messaging and that approach into the original part of that contract, if that makes sense. I think the total contract is $257,000, but the strategic plan portion of that is I believe about $160,000 of that. The other thing that I would also say, you mentioned the 4-month time frame on this. This is a priority right now. Our partners out in the industry are struggling. We are seeing a bounce back in tourism, but it's going to be years before we reach pre-pandemic levels. And it's an opportunity for us to work with a company like Coraggio Group, who, by the way, has worked with 18 other state tourism offices developing similar plans, over 61 what we call destination marketing organizations throughout the country. They're very well qualified for this project.
Can you address the $312 an hour consulting fees?
As I said, I think our range on the consulting fees was in the $115 range, the lowest to over $400 at the highest. So they were in the middle of the pack there. And much of that, again, is optional. It's post-report implementation if we choose to do that. We're not sure we are going to do that right now. But again, they were neither the lowest nor the highest on the hourly rate.
Okay, I don't want to turn into a consultant, but the committee is familiar with my concern about Deloitte. And this Coraggio Group contract reminds me of a Deloitte contract. They've been in 18 other states, some of whom have some similarities to us for sure. You can't not have some similarities if we're picking 18 other states. In my experience, they're going to essentially go through a 4-month process. At the end of the day, they're going to hand us a report that's going to essentially be a copy and paste from a variety of other reports they've already done for other places. $200,000 later, then we can pay them $300 an hour for consulting fees, which I'm still not clear how. That to me needs a lot more explanation. And at the end of the day, here we've put a lot of money into something, and this is particularly post-COVID. This is a new field. We aren't really sure exactly what people's trends are going to be. We can't maybe predict it like we used to be able to predict it. Having somebody at the head of a strategic plan that might as well potentially be a boilerplate plan that we can get from anywhere, I'm not sure actually brings a lot of value. And particularly when we've been as hard hit as we have been, my concern is that we're spending money and spinning wheels instead of getting feet on the ground. You know, taking 4 months to put a plan together. My word, the summer is going to be over. This is peak season. I am surprised, but also heartened at the amount of bolstering of vacations and tourism type style activities that have happened. One of the things that's been potentially a little bit of a deterrent is, you know, I know for myself as I'm doing vacation planning, I don't know what's open. I'm not really clear what the rules are. Am I going to be able to go on something I wanted to go on, or are they going to, you know, want me to wear a mask? It's 100 degrees, I'm sweating, you know, so I feel like there are a lot of other ways besides getting some national report for multi-$1,000. And I still don't know what this diversity thing is all about. But I would say, let's get a copy of all those other 18 state plans, and some staff at the tourism office in the cabinet take a look over it and put together our best effort. To me, that would be the DIY hack bargain plan. We could have that done this week, get that pushed out to the tourism groups, and we'll all be better off. That'd be the way I would handle this, I guess, from a more entrepreneurial perspective instead of, bureaucratic performance. With that, Mr. Chairman, I was going to make a motion to defer to get more information on this $312. I certainly don't mind to make that motion if the cabinet is willing to provide a better handle on why we need to pay that kind of money, or if we could take that off the contract. If there's modifications allowed, I definitely need to brush up on my 45A to be sure if this is possible. If it's not possible, then I would move to disapprove. So I'd like to get a little direction, perhaps on what's possible, if it's worth deferring for, or if I should just move to disapprove.
I would certainly accept a motion from you in either case, but let me open it up, see if anybody else has any questions regarding this contract. I do have one, and that would be, is this premature? And I don't mean that as a criticism, but it appears from everything I've read that tourism is bouncing back in with a vengeance right now. And if what we receive really is kind of old news, and through its natural course, tourism is advancing anyway, is this premature? The second part of that is we're now hearing about the Delta virus. And if we have a second, third wave of this, is all this work for naught, and we're going to have to do it all over again once we get through this?
Those are great questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What I would say is it's not premature, it's overdue. When I came back to this office in February of 2020, this was one of my highest priorities, to help develop a strategic plan for our industry. And again, this isn't for my office and my staff. This is for the industry. We want engagement for the industry. Where is Kentucky tourism going over the next 3 to 5 years, 10 years? How can our office better serve our constituents out in the markets, our constituents being those tourism commissions, convention visitors bureaus, attractions, hotels. When you look at tourism in Kentucky and go back, not a lot has changed over the years. We've had steady growth, but you look at other states that have undertaken these types of strategic plans, and you've seen somewhat exponential growth. Part of this is going to be, how do we in Frankfort help that local tourism commission or that local community develop tourism on their own? Because tourism in Paducah may look different than tourism in Paintsville. Different assets, different demographics who are visiting, different markets, et cetera. At the state level, our challenge is, how do we promote the entire store and all of that to visitors to get them in? I've always taken the approach that our job is to get them to the store, which is Kentucky. We don't care where they visit. And then it's the local's job to develop assets that will encourage those people to come to their specific department of the store, for maybe a bad analogy. But there's never been a coordinated plan with the buy-in. Someone told me a long time ago that if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. Well, this is going to help us develop the roadmap to get us where we as an industry want to be. I will tell you again that, and I think it's quite an assumption to say these are going to be boilerplate when we haven't seen them. I have looked at plans from the Coraggio group from other states and that was part of the bid. We wanted to see what they did. They were anything but. They were very targeted to that state, and had a very good handle on, I'll give you an example. They did Utah's, right? And one of the things that Utah was dealing with pre-pandemic, and even more so during the pandemic, was in their national parks. Their national parks were getting such heavy visitation, they were reaching a point of over-tourism. Too many people coming in. It was ruining the experience. There was trash and everything else. In their report, Coraggio Group addressed that, brought in the players, if you will, that had an impact on that, and developed a plan for sustainability moving forward, not just now, but for the next 5 to 10 years. How do you manage that visitation? How do you enhance that experience for you may have heard of the Mighty Five, that 5 national parks that they have out in Utah. That is not an issue for us right now with over-tourism in many of our places. So it will be tailored to us. I will tell you right now, Kentucky tourism is broken up into 9 very distinct regions, as we have been marketing for many years that way. They already have their meetings planned for 2-hour listening sessions in each of those 9 regions in the next 3 weeks. This is not premature to your question. I do think it's overdue. We have strong buy-in from the industry already who want this, and I think it will be a benefit to the tourism industry overall. One of the largest industries, by the way, in this state, and it is much needed right now.
Other question I'd have for you is, we can't do this within a vacuum. In references made to our state park system, which at one time was the jewel of the nation. And I tell you, it hasn't been for some time. It's probably the most frequent complaint I get about tourism in Kentucky. The quality facilities are just not what they used to be. I mean, you stay at a state park and you do a flashback to the 70s, and we need to make that investment. We know we do. But is all this for naught if we're not going to be able to upgrade our park system? Or will this be part of their assessment? Is there going to be conversations with the Parks Department?
The parks are involved in this, yes, sir. And keep in mind, and I agree with everything you've said. The parks are an important part of our tourism infrastructure throughout the state. Pardon me. I think many of you know that if you have a state park in your area, many times it's one of the largest employers in your area. So certainly there are concerns for us in the Department of Tourism when we promote the parks, which we do regularly, and we work very closely with their marketing team every opportunity we have to promote the parks. We take it, but please keep in mind that the Kentucky tourism industry is much bigger than just Kentucky State Parks or state-owned facilities for that matter. Again, we are considered the retail cabinet when you look at Kentucky venues. You look at Kentucky Horse Park, State Parks, the Artisan Center at Berea, and you can go down the list. My agency's job is to promote that. It's to promote Kentucky as a travel destination, to bring visitors so they spend money and help improve the economy of Kentucky. So we don't look at it our agency does not look at tourism in a vacuum of just Kentucky State Parks. Okay, and please understand that. We're on the same floor. We work with them constantly. As I said, they do not have a large marketing budget. We pick up the slack whenever we can for that. They will certainly be a part of this, but we have to take a much broader look at the industry in general. And as I said, we're more of a retail type cabinet. I hear thrown around a lot, state government should run more like a business. And while I don't agree with that in many situations, in ours it is as relevant as anywhere else in state government. My competition is anywhere you can go spend money. Senator Southworth mentioned she's going on vacation. I'm not going to put her on the spot and ask her where she's going.
I hope it's Rough River.
But what I would tell you is anywhere someone goes to spend money, whether that's a business trip. People don't look at business trips at tourism, but it is included in our numbers. We compete with the Las Vegases of the world for major conferences in Louisville. We compete with the leisure traveler who wants to go to a beach in Florida as opposed to a beach at Kentucky Lake or something like that.
That's what I'm trying to make, though, is for many people, the entry point for tourism in Kentucky is going to one of the state parks.
It is. You're correct.
Even if they come for another reason, but they've stayed at the state parks, they leave Kentucky with not the best impression. So again, you convinced me that there is part of this, but
yes,
I'd ask, even though you're not directly responsible for them, that you would advocate with the current administration that with all the CARES money we got floating around here, and we're talking about improving infrastructure, that we designate a portion of those funds to address the state park issue. that will create jobs in itself because it's long overdue. We're talking about construction. We're talking about updating heating, cooling, air. It can create jobs, but we're never going to have a better opportunity to make this investment in our state parks than we do today with the gross amount of CARES funding that we still have out there. So I'd ask that you be an advocate for that as well.
Sir.
Any other questions, comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I wanted to ask a follow-up. We talked a little bit about the Coraggio Group, and hopefully they have better reporting than Deloitte style reports, but this diversity, equity, and inclusion subcontractor, I want to get a handle because right now what we're discussing is an outfit from Portland, Oregon, picking another contractor for an apparently undetermined task. And I suspect that since this has been a priority item since February 2020, that perhaps there's a little bit more that we could find out about what the priority is and what the accomplished goals are in that piece of this.
Could I suggest, if I could, because we need to move on, this contract has a lot of different elements to it, and I think you understand the sensitivity of Center Southworth's issue here. Could you have a conversation with her and anybody else on this committee about that particular portion of it? And if we can't come to terms with it, it's just not go that direction.
Right, and as I said, it's optional right now for that, and I understand your time crunch here. What I would say is, I think the Department of Tourism was established in the late 70s, early 80s. We've always focused on families, and our marketing has been primarily to families. We've really not broached other areas. Specifically, such as African American marketing, Hispanic marketing, LGBTQ marketing, and those are areas that we are seeing growth in, opportunity. And as I said, tourism is not partisan. We don't look at it. I don't care, right? We want you to come to Kentucky and have a great time. I'm happy to sit down and send the information to Senator Southworth or any other members of the committee that they would request.
Thank you. With that, is there a motion on this contract?
I so move.
Motion by Co-Chair Cook to approve.
Yes, sir.
Second.
Second
By Representative Bowling. All those in favor vote aye. All opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Hornback, Senator Southworth,
No.
Senator Yates, Representative Bowling,
I vote yes.
Representative Hart,
Yes.
Representative Minter,
Yes.
Representative Cook.
Explain my vote.
Yes, please.
I vote yes today. Very familiar. I'm in the horse business. I know how important tourism is to it and everything else that's going on. I'm also a state park junkie. Anything we can do to get people coming in to Kentucky and spending their money here is money well spent. Would like to see improvements at the state park as part of this, but there's so much to tourism, and I think every effort we can do to bring people in is good effort. Thank you.
Chairman Meredith.
Aye. Motion carries. And Commissioner, appreciate you spending time with us this morning, and very educational, and we look forward to continued dialogue with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and don't forget when you're taking that vacation, travel KY. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Next on our list, University of Kentucky. And we're talking about contracts 130, 131, 133, 138, 139, 140, 142, and 143 on the routine. If representatives are here, and I know they are, please come forward and identify yourself for the record.
I'm not sure which order you're going to go in, Mr. Chairman, but we've got several folks here, and we'll bring them up to the table as necessary.
I see that. Let's start with contract 130, because Senator Southworth has a question about that.
And for the record, I'm Bart Harden, the Director of Government Relations, and I have with me, for the moment at the table, Barry Swanson, our Director of Procurement. And if you want to introduce yourself for the record, please.
Sylvia Rivera, Executive Director of Energy and Utilities.
Thanks, sir. Senator Southworth, please proceed.
Yes, I wanted to get an idea if we're going to spend $4 million on a consulting project to see if we can save money on our energy. It seems like to me, I'm trying to get a handle on the scope of our energy bills as they exist now. If you can save a percentage, how many years it would take to what's $4 million represent as far as our total energy consumption now? And I'm just trying to do some basic math. Typically, when you think of consulting to see if you can save, I remember when I had a Jeep and I was wanting to switch to a car, and I did the math on average miles per gallon driven each year. You know, all this, it was cheaper for me to keep the Jeep and pay $80 to fill the tank when it was $4 a gallon. So I kept the Jeep. What I want to know is how much is our energy cost, and how do we justify $4 million?
So let me give some framework, give you some context behind that. This is a multi-year contract, and it started in 2015. Year to date, the university has saved $31 million and has spent a little less than $4 billion a year from the years 17 through the date. It has been reevaluated over time, and so as a context, these are savings that the university will continue to maintain once these initiatives have been established. So it's not a once and you see it gone. It's a continuation of that saving trend.
How much is the savings again?
Year to date, contract to date is $31 million.
$31 million. Well, we need to hire more consultants. That's what we need to do. Make it a revenue stream. Yeah. Senator Southworth, you have any follow-up on that?
I guess my only follow-up would potentially be, how long do we anticipate this contract will be last?
The current contract will expire in December of 2022, but I would expect that we would do a rebid. That would be a discussion that we have not yet had, but that's when the current contract expires.
2022,
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Representative Bowling, seconded by Representative Hart. All in favor of the motion vote aye. All opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Hornback, Senator Southworth,
Aye.
Senator Yates, Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Hart.
Yes.
Representative Mentor.
Yes.
Representative Cook.
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
Aye. Motion carries. Next contracts are the ones I have, 130, 131 and 133. And if Senator Southworth has concern about spending $4 million, I got concerns about spending $7.5 million. And this will be short. Martin, we've had this conversation before. Here we are, branding strategy. It seems like we've been doing a branding strategy ever since I was in high school. Believe me, that's a long time ago. And does it ever end? And really, does it ever end?
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Please identify yourself for the
Yes,
record.
I'm Tom Harris, Vice President of University Relations. It's a pleasure to be back face to face with you.
Yes,
Thank
it
you,
is.
sir. Thank you. So the brand strategy is really a small contract with Suzanne Oldham Consulting. She's from Louisville, a national expert in brand strategy. And as you know, sir, the health industry is rapidly and constantly changing, and she has been a vital part of developing our brand for the UK healthcare enterprise. Obviously, it's critical for them to stay on the cutting edge of where their healthcare and the practices, and she has been a major part of helping develop that brand strategy of the power of advanced medicine is something that she has worked on, and we continue to evolve for healthcare.
Well, I can certainly accept that one. He's in the $7.5 million for Cornett.
Sure. So this one is actually, while it is a big number, it used to be multiple contracts, And one of the things that we have tried to do is consolidate all of our marketing and advertising dollars into one contract. Healthcare used to use an outside the state firm. We have brought them under the umbrella of Cornett. So we're trying to do one university. Athletics, which is a big user as well, is also under this contract. And we, as well as all 17 colleges now and multiple units across the campus, we've tried to consolidate so we get value of that. And I should point out that the vast majority of these dollars are really a pass-through for Cornett in media buys. So we are buying social media for recruitment of students. The hospital is a big user in cross-media platforms, from TV to social media to billboards, in developing patient for all the different specialty practices. Obviously, we're trying to put fans in the seats for all our athletic events. The Gatton School of Business is trying to attract students for their MBA program from across the country, because we are now in a digital form in many respects of our program. So we're trying to recruit students from all over the country for both in-person and our online programs. And so the vast majority of those dollars actually go to media buys for TV and social media. And the value of using a firm like Cornett, a Kentucky company, in fact, a Lexington, Kentucky company, is that they bring value in volume. So we put all of our volume together, but they add multiple clients across the country. And so we get a much better value on our return on media buys, as opposed to certainly us trying to hire somebody to do a small media buy. They are doing large media buys with the TV or with Facebook, and we get a much better value out of that.
I think with the medical center, UK Sports, the university itself, you really have three different marketing strategies you would have to have. But speaking specifically of the university, one of the things that's concerned me, because I've seen every university be very aggressive with this, is trying to attract more students to the universities, which you understand. But are we being so aggressive with it that folks are coming to university that really should not be in a university setting? They're really, in terms of career development, they would be better served someplace else. Do we ever look at that, or is the intent just let's get as many warm bodies in here as we possibly can?
No, actually, I probably couldn't have gotten in now when I applied. Bart and I have talked about that often. So there are obviously very strict standards that we try, and we're trying to attract the very top students. Obviously, every qualified Kentuckian is our top priority. But we are also looking for those out-of-state students that can be successful here. Hopefully, we'll have a great experience here and stay in the state. And it doesn't hurt that they're paying out-of-state tuition too.
Well, it's never about the money; it's about the money. I appreciate it. I don't have any other questions. If there's no, guys, Representative Bowling.
Thank you, Chairman Meredith. Previously, was Cornett under contract previously doing the same type things?
Yes, this is a renewal of a contract that we RFP'd, I think, 3 years ago.
Okay.
And this is an increase in the amount because we've consolidated more.
Okay. And I heard that they do athletic as well as UK
That's
healthcare
correct.
and some others. So are they the entity that, along with UK Athletics, that's responsible for the checkerboards on everything across the board? And
they have been a part of implementing that brand, yes.
Okay. Is that still their goal moving forward? Because believe it or not, I know we kind of laugh at it, but I've had a lot of people that have reached out to me that aren't a fan of kind of becoming checkerboard U, and I don't know if y'all have any plans to look at that and maybe consult with them or talk with them about going a different direction. Or if I know a lot of times now when I see new facilities, it's actually implemented into the buildings themselves or the fields or the turfs or whatnot. And it just may be something y'all want to look at, because
Sure.
I know I've got a lot of feedback from it.
Yeah, fair point. I'll pass that along.
Any questions?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by co-chair Cook. These are contracts 131 and 133. All those in favor of the motion vote aye. All opposed will vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Hornback, Senator Southworth,
Aye.
Senator Yates, Representative Bowling,
Yes.
Representative Hart,
Yes.
Representative Mentor,
Yes.
Representative Cook,
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
Aye. Motion carries. And guys, we're in the home stretch. We have contracts 138, 139, 140, 142, and 143. And I'll turn this over to Co-Chair Cook. Who has questions?
Thank you, Senator Meredith. This will be fairly quick. The highlight here is we get the mark on here exceeds our committee's maximum rate. And so you want to poll and want to talk to it. But I certainly understand. I've read your letters, and I certainly understand why malpractice insurance, legal counsel, and all that is going to exceed our rate. I guess my question is more formed this morning. After we had the teacher's pension, we talked about that. Do we as a committee need to look at adjusting what some of our legal rates are?
Well, you just open up Pandora's box, and I would think it would warrant having some possibly task force on that, because you're right, we're seeing more and more of these, and it's just not for these services, but also for auditing services as well. But yeah, we hate to waste everybody's time if we know it is what it is, and I think your suggestion is excellent. I'm not sure what the starting point, though, is. Mm-hmm.
I'm not either, but I think that's something I'll look at. I really don't have any other questions. I've read the letters. I understand where you're going with that. I understand it. I just think we can make some adjustments on our end, and something I'll look into. So thank you. And with that, I make a motion to approve these.
Motion to approve. Is there a second? Second, Representative Hart. All those in favor of the motion to approve 138, 139, 140, 142, and 143 will vote aye. All opposed vote no. Please call the roll.
Senator Hornback, Senator Southworth.
Aye.
Senator Yates, Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Hart,
Yes.
Representative Mentor,
Yes.
Representative Cook,
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
Aye. Motion carries. As always, appreciate your attendance here. Good to see you, particularly in person.
Thank you.
Next item on the pulled list is with behavioral health, development, and intellectual disabilities is number 8 on the routine MOA pink list. If representatives are here or online, please identify yourself for the record.
Yes, my name is Stephanie Craycraft. I'm Deputy Commissioner for the department. And also I have Dr. Robbins with me, if she could introduce herself.
Sure. Good morning, folks. My name is Tina Robbins, and I'm a Senior Executive Advisor with the Department for Behavioral Health, Developmental, and Intellectual Disabilities.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Senator Southworth has questions.
Yes, I wanted to try to get a better handle on the study. What it appears to me from reading the contract is that we're going to be training, I don't remember, 25 or some mental health people using 100 youth, I suppose maybe as tests, guinea pigs, whatever, and trying to figure out how something about racially induced trauma. And I'm just really concerned because, first of all, there's the ethics question of testing children. And the second issue is, racially induced trauma is getting to be a buzzword for a lot of things these days, one of which is segregation, another which is, making people feel like segregation, it's a lot of varieties of segregation. So can you give a little better handle on what we're doing here and why?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for your question. So we have a federal grant from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration that really calls for us to improve the system of care, the mental health system of care for children and youth in Kentucky. And our grant in particular focuses on children with child welfare involvement or who are at risk of child welfare involvement. So that's the kind of larger context, if you will. This is really, this scope of work in this contract is really about workforce development and improving the competencies and the capacity of our public behavioral health safety net providers and their staff to be able to serve children and families of color. We know that families of color don't access services, behavioral health services, at the same rate as other families, as white families in general, and their outcomes are not as positive. And so this is really our opportunity here to improve the competencies of our behavioral health workforce.
Can you speak a little more specifically on the exact study here, or
exactly
what you're doing?
Yes, absolutely. So there are 3 components, and I just want to clarify what those are, because I think it's a little misleading, maybe how it's written. So we'll be starting with awareness trainings. Those awareness events will be open to lots of different types of child caring professionals. We may have our court designated workers there. We may have educators there, but anyone who's potentially interfacing with children of color who may be experiencing some mental health issues. And so we have a series of awareness sessions, and then that will be followed up with a series of training and consultations with any behavioral health provider that's interested in instituting screening and assessment tools that will help with the treatment process. And so that's pretty routine, but these would be specific screening and assessment tools that they would learn how to use that are evidence-based. The third component, I think, is what you're honing in on. There's currently an evidence-based treatment approach that has been designed by these folks at Spalding, shown to be effective, but it's only been shown to be effective with individuals 13 and older. They've never tested the model, if you will, for a younger age group. And so we are working with them through this contract to essentially train some of our behavioral health providers in an adapted version of this evidence-based treatment. And then we'll be looking at the outcomes and having quality measures in place to ensure that we're having, the outcomes that we want. So ultimately, all of this is about improving outcomes, behavioral health outcomes more specifically for our children and youth in Kentucky.
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe I have any other questions. I'm kind of just opens up another can of worms, which is, what were they finding 13 and up? It just really bothers me, the fact that we're kind of going back to this whole segregation thing. I remember when my mom said she found out, when she was an older child, exactly what was going on. When she was first in school, it was segregated. I'm seeing that a lot more and more. The fact that these words are even on the screen, that, somebody's race is a creation of trauma and necessarily implies a mental health issue. It's very, very concerning, and I definitely don't like that. Certainly, everybody's aware that, some people have mental health issues. Everybody has, I guess, to some degree, various mental health issues, but, I'm not sure that it's racial in nature as far as how you get those. It's just very, this whole thing's very tedious. I'm just not comfortable at all. Certainly testing and trials and studies are great. I'm not sure that working with children is the way to do that till we're a lot safer ground.
I appreciate that, Senator Southworth. And my concern with this is, have we reached a conclusion, and now we're doing studies to support the conclusion? It reminds me of the situation several years ago with young children who were apparently sexually abused, and being brought into a room and said, "You were sexually abused, how you feel about that?" And they didn't even know what they were talking about. But after they said it several times, they said, "Oh yes, I was sexually abused," when in fact they weren't. And as racial trauma and racial inequities, has that become the default answer for all these things? Is it how you define racial trauma? Could it be because there's only one parent in the household? So again, have we reached conclusions, and now we're going to do studies to support the conclusions? And that's what it appears to me. I think this is very misleading. certainly if anybody has suffered from racial trauma, we want to provide assistance to that person. But I think it's a stretch to suggest that everyone who's of color is a victim of racial trauma and inequities. So I think you're right. It is being very divisive, or has the potential to be divisive. There should be a better way to couch this and still accomplish the things that we're doing. Simply is, what are your barriers, regardless of what your race is, what are your barriers to being successful in being mentally healthy? So I share your concerns, but.
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
I would move to disapprove.
So motion to disapprove, is there a second? Second by Representative Hart. All those in favor of disapproving the contract will vote aye. All opposed will vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Hornback, Senator Southworth,
Aye.
Senator Yates, Representative Bowling, Representative Hart,
Yes.
Representative Mentor,
No.
Representative Cook,
No.
Chairman Meredith.
I want to explain my vote, and I'm voting no on this, but I want the presenters to understand that this is a sensitive issue, and I think you need to hear our concerns, and I hope and pray that you will, and take a different approach to this. But with that, the vote is 2 yes, 3 no, 1 pass. So is there a motion to approve the contract?
So moved.
Motion by Representative Mentor, I believe. Is there a second? Second by Chairman Cook. All those in favor of the motion to approve, vote aye. All opposed, vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Hornback, Senator Southworth,
No.
Senator Yates, Representative Bowling,
Yes.
Representative Hart,
No.
Representative Mentor,
Yes.
Representative Cook,
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
It's 3-2.
I'm voting no, but it's irrelevant because we have 3 yes, 3 no, which means that the decision is deferred to the Finance Cabinet for final decision. So thank you for your testimony this morning, and we'll move on to the next item. That is on the pull list for Department of Public Health is number 37 on the routine MOA pink list. If representatives are here, please identify yourself for the record.
Yes. This is Mike Tuggle, Department of Public Health, Division of Administration and Financial Management, Assistant Director.
Thank you for joining
Andrew
us.
Yunt, Department of Public Health, Administration Financial Management Director.
Thank you. Appreciate you being here. Senator Southworth has questions.
Yes, this is really an overview because I could have pulled any or all of these, and it looks like to me maybe this is an annual thing as the flow through from the federal down. But can you just explain a little bit? And also, because this year it seems like it's a little different because we have, special COVID money versus regular money. So can you kind of split for us? Is all of this non-COVID, but then I saw COVID stuff in the list, and why is that not in the COVID contract money, or is it already included in some of these federal funds?
Yes. So Senator, yes, this contract is one of 6 with local health departments. This is for the epidemiology services. So we kind of break those contracts into 6 because of the programmatic services. So this one does have both COVID as well as non-COVID assistance in it. So, and this supports the core work of our public health system. This is the disease investigation, disease surveillance, care coordination, immunizations. So again, it includes everything we do with that core work with our counties in the epidemiology division.
I'm thinking of funding streams right now. some of these funds, most of them say they're federal, but is there a way that they're sorting out because we have this extra federal funds that are specifically to COVID this year compared to normal years?
As your question, can I distinguish in the contract for you what if it's COVID versus non-COVID? Is that the question?
Yeah, well, as far as the actual money that we're spending, obviously it's a giant package, $120 million. And some of the items on the list of services were COVID related. I was wondering if any of these federal funds that we're paying for this are coming through the COVID federal funds. All the names of which escape me at the moment, but compared to the normal regular public health federal funds.
Yeah, so there's money in here for COVID to support some of those disease investigation programs. So we have it from the Paycheck Protection legislation, we have it from the coronavirus response legislation. So there's monies in here to support COVID activities, and there's money in here also from our basic core ongoing baseline public health funding. So there's a mix. So in that federal, there's a mix of both ongoing HIV, ongoing STD, ongoing immunization, but there's also COVID funding in here to support those same or similar programs to take care of the issues that's been experienced with COVID and in cost that's been incurred or needs to be incurred, and support our health departments in addressing those disease outbreaks and investigations.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any other questions. I'll just finish with a comment instead of explaining my vote later. We're talking about precious resources, trying to figure out what's the best use of taxpayer dollars. And I understand some of these are federal funds. Some of them, I guess, we've been borrowing them or something, because I don't think that we've all contributed enough to support all of the extra funds that have been expended this year at the federal level. But to me, a taxpayer dollar, whether it's federal or state, is something worthwhile. And if I'm looking at return on investment, some of these items just don't seem to be the ROI that I think people hope or assume or something. Certainly, some of these specifically, continued testing, ramping up a vaccine program, starting the contract date July 1. I'm not sure what we're ramping up. Seems like to me mostly everybody's sort of finished, but those things concern me, how many millions of dollars we're putting out of taxpayer money that we could be putting to things people are going to see and feel sometimes closer to home, or what seems more valuable to our constituency. So I will be voting no. I appreciate the question and answer.
Well, you can't vote no until there's a motion. So is there a motion to approve? Again, is there a motion to approve? Is there a motion to disapprove?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Representative Hart. I think he was beat into submission. All those in favor will vote aye. All opposed will vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Hornback. Senator Southworth.
No.
Senator Yates. Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Hart.
Yes.
Representative Mentor. Representative Mentor. Representative Cook.
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
Yes.
Kim, what's the vote?
4-1, we do not have enough to move this measure forward. So again, it'll be referred to the Finance Cabinet for final disposition. So thank you. Next item on our agenda is number 303 on the routine POA list, pink list. If representatives are here, please identify yourself for the record.
Department of Military Affairs.
Yes, Department for Military Affairs. So anyone on from the Department of Military Affairs?
Right here, sir.
Oh,
Good morning,
thank you,
Chairmans Meredith and Cook.
Good
and
morning.
members of the committee. I'm Brigadier General Brian F. Wertzler, the Interim Executive Director for the Department of Military Affairs. And to my left is Brigadier General Retired Charles T. Jones, who's the State Director for our 2 Youth Challenge programs in the state. And to my right is Rebecca Dittert, the DMA Budget Director. We're appearing before this committee this morning to answer any questions you may have between the contract between DMA and the Eminence Independent School System as DMA supports, as that contract allows DMA to support Bluegrass Challenge Academy.
Appreciate you being here. And the first question I have is, did you ever think your morning would go like this?
I did not.
Thank you. Central Southworth has questions.
Thank you.
Central Southworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the work that these guys have been doing with their very at-risk and almost lost youth. And I want to say I was a key player in actually making this contract happen years ago. And the reason I wanted to bring it up today is to ask for clarification. There is a budget line item that we allocate for paying this contract. And can you all refresh or help us recall how much money that is that you're receiving to provide these services for those youth?
It's $335,000. This is General Jones, and I appreciate your continued support, Senator. It's $335,000 per academy, based on a 1.2 per academy requirement state funding. As you know, it's a 75-25 cooperative agreement program.
Is that the 335? Is that per year or per budget cycle for 2 years?
That's per year, ma'am.
Okay, and this contract here that we have before us today is a 1-year contract for $450,000.
That is correct.
So, how much money are we not providing in our line item to cover even to get to sea level to cover the cost of this contract? Then that'd be $400, almost over $100,000.
So the cost, the state match for this contract is $112,000.5. So to address that question, I guess it's difficult. The shortage between what is in the general funds allotted for the program is basically $800,000. So it's like 1.2 million per program state match. I don't know if that addressed your question or not, ma'am.
No, sure. Well, I guess what I'm trying to get to is the Eminence Independent Schools providing education. Obviously, the program itself is residential 24/7. So I suppose that might be the difference in costs versus what we're seeing. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So if we pay Eminence $450,000, you all still have some money left over for the other residential part of the program. Is that sufficient, or are we? My understanding is that we've been a little under budgeting in the past. So I just want to get an idea if this contract, is this going to be the same every year, or is this going to be kind of going up for depending on how many kids you have, the 450?
No, ma'am, it's gonna go up. The initial contract that we implemented back in 2017 was $420,000, and that was based on what Dr. Berry and the Eminence Independent System said it would cost to provide that service at that point in time, to provide educational services for these kids for 1 year. That was with the caveat that if SEEK money was allocated and the Eminence received SEEK funding, our costs would be reduced because it would be paid for out of SEEK, or a portion of it. The next year, 18 through 20, was a 2-year contract. That was for $625,000. This past year, 20 through 21, was $385,000. The $450 that you're seeing in this contract is actually a negotiation between us and Dr. Berry. He came back and said, we originally submitted it at $385. He said he could not provide the services at that, and we negotiated it up to $450, paying $65,000 of $150 bump up ask. So his ask was over $500,000. This is a reimbursement contract. He documents and submits monthly statements to us showing his expenditure. So they're making no money. It's no profit contract. So I anticipate, as all costs have continued to go up throughout all the environments, all the industry, I anticipate that next year Dr. Berry will come back and ask for the additional above and beyond the current $450,000.
Okay, thank you. I feel like we want to keep tabs on this because obviously it's going to be changing every year. But I spoke on the Senate floor earlier this session about the fact that we aren't paying seat dollars on students going to school in Kentucky. I really appreciate what this program can do because I actually attended graduation and saw students that were even possibly hopeless of getting a GED years ago. Now we're getting full-blown high school diplomas, something we definitely want to focus on. It's our at-risk youth. Instead of being in the juvenile justice system, they're actually getting high school diplomas and being productive members of society. So appreciate that work. And move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion approved. There's a second by Representative Hart. All those in favor of the motion vote aye. All opposed will vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Hornback. Senator Southworth.
Aye.
Senator Yates. Representative Bowling.
Yes.
Representative Hart.
Yes.
Representative Mentor. Representative Cook.
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
Aye. Motion carries. Appreciate y'all joining this morning.
Thank you.
Hope the rest of the day goes well.
Thank you.
Last but not least, final item on the pooled list is Office of Inspector General is number 334 on the routine MOA pink list. Representatives are here. Please identify yourself for the record.
Adam Mather, Inspector General for the Cabinet for Health and Family Services.
Mr. Mather, appreciate you being here. Senator Southworth has questions for you.
Certainly.
Thank you. So as I'm reading this explanation, it reminds me of a screening that I did at a location. It looked like to me these were like tablets and it looked like facial recognition technology. Is that what this is?
No, it's an infrared technology that measures your temperature, so it's not facial recognition.
With all of the data points there, it looked like to me it could also include that, but are we sure that that's not the case?
I'm sure. Well, so it's they are tablet-like. So I'm that is not part of the contract. I'm sure that software could be applied to that to make it that way, but that's not how they're operationalized.
Okay, as I read the contract, it looked like there might be some holes, but I just wanted to try to get to the bottom of is, there were a couple of Senate bills actually on this last session, which I was really excited. Another senator beside myself, I guess we both filed on the same day, unbeknownst to each other, and certainly a lot more facial recognition devices or facial recognition capable devices installed all over the place, private entities, public entities, and so forth. And we need to be, when we're collecting somebody's personal identifying information, we have to be telling them what's going on. And I was just not comfortably clear that the contract was going to be informing people of exactly what they were handing over when they were getting their faces scanned. So I just want to get kind of a assurance on that.
Yeah, it tells them that they'll be scanning their face for their temperature using an infrared sensor as they're doing it. And I mean, at the end of the day, this is really to help for the look after the safety and welfare of the elderly population living in skilled nursing facilities.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I won't have any other questions.
No questions.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Representative Bowling. Seconded by Co-Chair Cook. All those in favor of the motion vote aye. All opposed vote no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Hornback. Senator Southworth.
explain my vote, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please.
I'm going to vote no, just out of an abundance of caution. I would want to review that contract in a little bit more detail. I looked at it before, but I'm just not 100% assured, although I am at least more assured than I was when I walked in the meeting.
Representative Southworth, I appreciate your position on this. I think we are to the point where we've lost some committee members. We only have 5 votes. If this is not unanimous, cannot proceed. I again appreciate your concerns, but I think for this particular technology, it is desperately needed for our long-term care facilities, and I would ask you to reconsider your vote.
It's my understanding it will go to the finance chairman if we don't approve. Is that the case?
That's correct.
I'll just keep my vote as it is.
All righty. Appreciate it. Clerk, please continue.
Senator Yates, Representative Bowling,
Yes.
Representative Hart,
Yes.
Representative Mentor, Representative Cook,
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
Yes. As already noted, the vote is 4-1. We need 5 to approve the contract, so it'll go to the Finance Cabinet to final disposition. I'm sure they will approve it. So, Mr. Mather, I appreciate you being on board today and providing your testimony and answer the questions, but thank you. One last item we need to work on very quickly. That's consideration of exemption request from Kentucky Department of Agriculture on Committee Policy Statement 99, which prohibits contracts from extending beyond the current biennial. Yada, yada, yada. Is there a motion? Motion by Representative Hart, seconded by Co-Chair Cook. All those favoring the motion vote aye. All those opposed, nay.
Senator Hornback, Senator Southworth,
Aye.
Senator Yates, Representative Bowling,
Yes.
Representative Hart,
Yes.
Representative Mentor, Representative Cook,
Yes.
Chairman Meredith.
Excuse me. Next meeting, August 10th, Tuesday, August 10th at 9 a.m. That is there a motion to adjourn? If so, everybody stand up. We'll go home. Thank you. Appreciate everybody's participation. Thank you.